Hey everybody, Andy here. I just have two really quick things to tell you about. First one, and the thing that excites me the most currently, is that my new album, my new Lowercase Noises album, you're the first people to hear about this, but it is going to go up for pre-order this Friday, and it's going to be at lowercasenoises.com, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. We'll talk about it more next week, I assume, but just wanted to let you know that. So I'm not going to tell you anything else about the album. There's going to be a trailer and a bunch of cool packages and stuff available at lowercasenoises.com on Friday at some point. So that's great. And the second thing is just, so this is an interview with Brandon Vedder, who is doing the David Bazan documentary. And since we recorded this interview, they have already reached their goal on Kickstarter, which is great. But that doesn't get you off the hook, boys and girls. So listen to this interview and then go give even more money, because Brandon can use it and Dave can use it, and they're both great people doing a good thing. So it's still worth your money. So this Friday, lowercasenoises.com. And go search Kickstarter for Strange Negotiations for the Dave Bazan documentary. That's all. Here's the show.
It's a B-side off of David Bazan's Care. I want to say up top to our listeners before we get down silly road.
Up top before we go down low, everybody.
Our guest today is Brandon Vedder, who is a filmmaker from San Francisco. I believe that's what he said, where he's currently living.
Wait, I didn't ask him if he was related to Eddie Vedder. I'm an idiot.
He's probably very tired of that question in his life. He might have hung up the call and left. Anyway, our guest is Brandon Vedder. He is making a documentary feature-length film about David Bazan. And it's
Former
not
guest.
your typical rock doc. It's in fact not a rock doc at all. It's kind of a person philosophy doc. So anyway, there is a Kickstarter currently happening for it that has, as of April 3rd, it has 3 days left to go. It's going to be done on April 6th at 8 in the morning. So you get your little buns over to that Kickstarter and help get it all the way there, because that'd be lovely, and everybody needs a David Bazan documentary in their lives.
Come on.
So
What's
we
your
put
deal?
a link in the show notes, but you can also just go to Kickstarter and search for Bazan or search for Strange Negotiations, which is the title. If you want to do the most typing possible, go search for Strange Negotiations. And there it is. Andy, I think I decided, speaking films, so I showed you and Stefan and a couple other people cut of the film. Yeah, we've covered that. So I think I decided after a week of thinking about it, I'm going to ignore all your feedback.
Okay.
It's a funny thing in the course of my artistic career. I know that sounds like a arrogant thing to say, but just from project to project, I think in the past I've taken too much influence from other people, and I should have. Like, for sure, you need those outside influences. But while you guys, my friends, are 100% supportive, you're maybe not necessarily the best voices to speak to the tone of the thing, you know?
Sure.
And that's true for books or music, and that's like obviously nothing against you guys. I'm glad you
are so
supportive. But
well, no, and you asked, so I gave you a thing that I noticed, but I even told you, I was like, this is not my. I'm happy you could take it with a large grain of salt. Like, this is not my world; it's your world. So,
sure,
I'm not like pissed. Like, you know what, Josh? This is what was gonna get you to win all those festivals, and you're just gonna ignore it like a little bitch.
Well,
you can do that.
Yes,
I'm not gonna do that. So.
Right.
So does that mean it's done?
Well, no, there's still a few things to fix because my filmmaker friends who were a little more detached, I mean, there's only 3 guys, Trevor, Austin, and Davey. Anyway, they had feedback that was a little more technical, and just they all have more experience than I do, and what they shared isn't so much about the story or the audience experience, but it's like from a filmmaking perspective, here are some weaknesses that you could clean up. So that kind of stuff I'm down.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm learning, I'm growing as a person, I think, is the point of this, that I used to just kind of let people shove me around, frankly.
Oh, yeah, that's great. You got to know, and I'm being serious, you do have to know who to ignore and be able to sort by like, well, where are they coming from? And you know, that goes all the way to some random person you may not even know who sees your film and says something good or bad about it. You can be like, well, no. It's not. And I've found, for me, it's always the most helpful to talk to people. Like, I'm kind of the same way. I have 3 or 4 people who are in the ambient music realm like I am and are very versed and steeped in it.
Yeah.
And their opinion I treat very highly. And everyone else can go jump in a lake as far as I'm concerned, sort of.
Yeah.
Unless it's something there has been times where I'm like, here's a thing I know is wrong with this, but I just kind of need someone to tell me before I do anything about it. I think maybe that's like laziness or something, or something else. I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, I support you in your decision to ignore my comments.
Thank you for your support.
Okay. Good on you.
What do you think? We ready for the ad already? Or you got some stuff to say?
I don't have anything to say. I've been doing manual labor all day, filling in mortar.
Instead of working on my soundtrack. That's great.
Yes. I've been chipping away at it.
I know.
But yeah, I'm ready for today's sponsor. And then we're just going to jump right in the interview.
Yeah, this was a good long one, but worth every minute.
Yes.
That was an unnecessary sentence.
You should edit that out of this podcast.
I do not have the control to do that.
All right, it's time for our sponsor. Here we go. That was really bad.
I think those notes added to the vibe. You know, Andy,
thank you for your feedback.
I've thought for a long time, I'm sick of these arrogant fucking hipsters who pretend that they never eat fast food. And it's all because a long time ago, speaking of documentaries, they saw Super Size Me, and then they were like, oh, I better not be associated with McDonald's because it's bad, and I'm going to pretend like I don't eat it and make everybody else feel stupid. Anyway, that's not the point of this ad, but I'm sick of them. And
you're fired up about this product. I can't wait to hear what it is.
I'm pretty fired up over here. I'm all riled. Somebody petted me the wrong way, in the wrong direction.
What's the wrong direction?
Well, I'm here to say...
My name's Josh, and I'm here to say I'm annoyed by hipsters in a big way. Go ahead.
I enjoy fast food quite a lot on occasion.
Sure.
And sure, I know it's bad for me, but that's why it's on occasion, because it's salty and delicious and wonderful.
Everything in moderation.
Well, so one of the chains that has been sweeping the nation is McDouganstein's, and they have a fairly unique menu selection.
Uh-huh.
It's very forward-thinking. It's very present in the moment. Vulnerable burgers. So I would just like to... I just want to read you some of the selections from their menu.
Okay. You want a little underlay?
Yeah, just something soft. I mean, one of the classics is the I just want my parents to love me burger, and that's got bacon. There's the soothing my depression with cheese burger. The I'm hungover and forgot to pack a lunch today. and F it, I feel like S and want some damn comfort food burger. There's the you got the my boyfriend slept with some skank and I'm definitely going to beat her ass, but first I'll pound down this power protein burger with kale lettuce. That's a really tasty one. It's mostly vegetables. It's got like a turkey patty. This is probably my favorite. So the name of the burger is, I always wanted a Nintendo Entertainment System for Christmas or my birthday, and I asked every year, but my family couldn't afford it, so I had to settle for a secondhand Sega Genesis years later when I could buy it with my own money. When I could buy it. Oh man, I might have lost this one. I mean, anyway.
It's fine, whatever. You still get paid. It's fine.
For 99 cents, you can snag one of their foot-long haunt dogs, which is 12. Anyway, McDouganstein's is a great place, and you should go there. And they're offering listeners of our show a $1 off coupon by visiting a participating McDouganstein's location. Ask for a mail-in form for the $1 off coupon, fill out the 3-page application, and write a 500-word essay about why you love McDouganstein's, and in 6 to 9 weeks, you'll receive your $1 off coupon in the mail. It's
amazing.
Not valid.
That sounds super
in
easy.
Massachusetts, New York, California, Colorado, New Mexico, or any states that begin with W. So anyway, thank you, McDouganstein's. My goodness, what a place. Okay, I need to read some of these other menu choices. I lost my footing there for a moment. Some of their side items include My Entire Life is Pain fries, served with their signature wacky sauce. And they have their 6-piece, many chickens were brutally murdered to bring you these delicious nuggets with sriracha dipping sauce. And for dessert, this is the last one. There is Death by Chocolate, the chocolate milkshake that will actually kill you 7 days after drinking it, but it's so delicious that many have gladly accepted the consequences. There you have it. Thank you. Take us out, Andy. Go to inkaneko.com/McDouganstein's. Good luck spelling it. Somebody might go Mandela effect on spelling that. Oh, shit. It's McDouganstein.
Oh, I get it.
And now for our conversation with Brandon Vedder, which is far more serious than anything we've done previously right now.
Nope.
Brandon, I want to start with 2 questions that may come across as sounding critical, but they're not at all. And I think they'll be a good jumping off point. So
good warm intro.
Right. So one is that, and I may know the answer to this, but so to give a little background, Andy and I both have experience with Kickstarter. In his case, music. In my case, a short film.
Okay.
So, and other films I've backed often come with one of the perks, like one of the cheapest perks is a digital download of the film once it's done. And so I'm just curious why yours does not have that.
It's a great question. And
Josh, you're so critical. What's your problem, dude?
Mr. Critical Man over here.
No, actually, I'm happy to answer this question because it's super specific, and there is a very good reason why we haven't. On my last film, In Pursuit of Silence, when we ended up selling it to a distributor, that was like a big sticking point that we had already given away downloads to our core audience.
Yes.
And so, and actually, when we premiered at South by Southwest, I went to a panel that was talking about that very same thing, where it's just like, giving away to your core audience, not giving, but, making available to your core audience before the film's available for release, has killed these huge Netflix deals and has really, in the market that we are, where like the potential of release and the energy of release and how much that's shared and talked about in that moment is worth so much to the distributor. Like they will not mess around, and like it's gotten pretty cutthroat in terms of that. And it sucks because it's a hard thing to communicate, and it feels weird to do it like so publicly, like, you know, because we're going to sell this film, we need to not give you guys the movie and you can buy it again. But it's just like it cuts our distribution options in a quarter probably if we were to do that, especially now, because we're far enough, you know, some of those companies gave grace to filmmakers when I released my last film, because it was just like, okay, this is still kind of the standard thing, but now it's just not.
Yeah. Okay,
so
that makes total sense, and that was my thought. Is I'll bet it has something to do with distribution.
Have you gotten some pushback from potential backers on that? Like, what the hell?
Totally, yeah, totally. You know, and for good reason, because it's that's the easiest thing, and that's what they, you know, like it would be the easiest thing for us to provide as well. So it became real, you know, like with that being one of the kind of the perks that drives the most traffic, it was really hard to figure out how to kind of circumvent that. Right, and actually Dave and I made that Trouble with Boys video a while back to actually for the Kickstarter release. And the idea was to make his first music video and kind of use the press around that to bring attention to the Kickstarter. And, you know, the day of the election, Dave called. I was at a film festival, and Dave called and was just like, can we please release this video today? Like, I want to put an opposing view into the world. You know, I feel like this is a personal attack on females, period. And so, of course, you know, we were like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. And so,
but was there a part of you that was like, well, shoot, that messes up our whole press or the stuff surrounding the Kickstarter? Did you have to throw something else together to be like, well, then what? Now what do we do for that?
Yeah, totally. And it made us kind of pushed the Kickstarter back 3 or 4 months.
Oh, okay.
You know, also because of the election.
Thanks,
where it's
Trump.
Just like,
jeez, we could have had this all earlier. Come on.
It felt so weird to add, you know, when people are trying to figure out what's next and kind of, you know, like where to put their money. And, you know, there was just a lot of grieving going on and a lot of people were making big decisions. So it felt weird to be trying to pull attention to ourselves and the disgusting nature of what Kickstarter is.
Right, surely.
So, yeah. It's a rough thing to do, man. You guys know. It's like...
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a terrible feeling.
I've tried to stay... Well, I have stayed away as much as possible from the whole, like, all or nothing in terms of the whole project. Like, all mine have been, I'd like to press my album to vinyl. Do you want that too? Like, if not, then fine, I won't put forward the money to do it. So that I'm frightened because Josh just did his of, hey, I want to do this movie and I need money to do it, and if I don't get it, I can't really do it, and that's terrifying.
It's crazy, but it's, you know, one of the big things with this film for me was I wanted to give it space to become like exactly what it was supposed to be. Sure. It's so nuanced, and it's so, you know, like it encounters such big conversations, and Dave's story and my interest in him is in so many different spheres that I really didn't want to try to define it too early. Yeah. And, you know, when you're looking for financing and you have to put together you have to define it, you know, you have to be totally reductive and define it. And so this was, you know, I started out just putting the movie on credit cards. And luckily, you know, it was on credit cards for like a year and a half. And then we got a couple grants. And then, you know, now with this Kickstarter, it's giving us the option to like let the movie actually become what it's supposed to be without any outside forces or without me having to, you know, define it earlier than I should.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're talking about defining the film and not the Kickstarter, right?
The film
is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, you know, that made the Kickstarter really hard because to a Kickstarter, there's nothing more reductive than a Kickstarter teaser, especially when you haven't made the film yet.
Right.
So, it's like you're having to define what the film is and try to broad strokes, pique people's interest and show them why it's worth their time and worth their investment and stuff. And so it's just I'm a long form storyteller. Like that's where I feel the most comfortable when I can, I'm interested in the silence between the words, and
sounds like jazz. It's the notes you're not playing.
Exactly.
But for film, yeah.
Yeah, which is not possible in a Kickstarter trailer. So
Right.
it was kind of miserable, but it's happening.
So outside of the Kickstarter video, given this long form conversation, how would you define the film? I guess sort of an elevator pitch, but like how would you define it?
Yeah, I'm very much in that process right now. Mm-hmm. I'm actually kind of on a full sprint because Dave and I are presenting I'm presenting some clips, and Dave is playing at this thing called the Festival of Faith and Music in Grand Rapids, Michigan on Thursday. That sounds like
enemy territory. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Well, he's actually been there a bunch of times.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really interesting thing that they've had like Cornel West there speaking, and Lupe Fiasco and Sufjan and Tune Yards, and yeah, it's a really interesting thing. But it's kind of a full sprint to get that stuff done, and then I finally get to just like stay in the cave and like take my time, and everything's been very like deadline based thus far,
right.
Which is tough. So, but to kind of answer the question in a general way, the film is, in the most general way, the film is a profile of this artist that, is really working to encounter truth in all spheres, and through his art, through his life, through the way that he practices business, through the way that he treats people, and that just being able to define that in a long form way, while using his art as kind of a foundation to stand on, that was kind of what really got me into it. So, we're talking about faith in America quite a bit, because that's the language that people know how to talk about ethics in America, right. And so Dave, it comes from that tradition, and he's well versed in speaking on those terms and with that language about just the simplest ethics of being a good husband, father, neighbor. Like, it's not it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it. And so, and obviously Dave his spiritual journey is one of the things that's most highlighted in his career and in press and stuff. So people really do have a very strong connection to that, and really want to be talking to him about that and getting his perspective on that, because he has, proven himself over the last 20 years as a trusted source for a lot of people of truth telling.
Well, yeah, and he's a super interesting case study, and like he has this following of people who are Christians and still believe a thing that he doesn't anymore, and it's so fascinating that they stick around for his thoughts and stuff. Like, totally. I don't know what the formula is, but maybe if you could get that in your film somehow, so that politicians and all these other places could be like, hey, well, I don't agree with you, but I'm interested in what you have to say. Like, that's, holy crap, I wish that was everywhere somehow.
No, that's a huge part of the film, just kind of the inclusive nature of the way the the house shows end up kind of serving as the setting of the film, because he's out on the road so much, and they're, like, it's just a really special, unique thing that he's created, where he's going to these secondary and tertiary markets that no bands really tour to, and going into someone else's living room, with their friends. It's kind of like going on to someone else's home turf, where they have this level of comfort, which just gives this like really interesting perspective and gives people the license to talk freely in a way that I haven't really experienced in many other settings. Right. So in the middle of Florida, or in Lynchburg, Virginia, or wherever it is, like, you're really, it was really exciting to kind of feel like we were capturing like a finger on the pulse of the flyover middle that is so easily demonized, and not really, the nuance of it isn't really understood, and to hear the struggles that they're actually going through, that are really different than people that live on the coasts, like myself. So yeah, it's a really special thing that he's kind of created, and the film seeks to do the same in terms of the tone of it, like very, like it's really just profiling Dave's story, and like as much, we're looking at things through his eyes and kind of through his perspective, but this inclusive way that he leads these house shows is, and like non-prescriptive kind of way of talking about the biggest ideas in the world is kind of what we're after. I feel like this is like one of the first press things I've done for the film, so I'm still trying to figure. Don't have quite my like talking points.
That's all right.
Etched out.
We're the testing ground. That's totally fine.
Yeah. So I listened to you and Dave on the Vinyl Me Please podcast, because those guys are friends of ours, or Tyler is a good friend, and
they're great.
I should mention publicly we're not copying them by having you on, that we were unaware of that booking, but anyway, it's fine.
We booked this first.
Hey.
Okay, right.
Step off, Vinyl Me Please.
But that made me think of something you said on that one, which is that at the start of all this, you were not necessarily a David Bazan super fan. Like, you had basically stopped at Pedro and not carried on. Is that correct?
Yeah, some of his stuff definitely kind of stayed in the rotation, but yeah, like I was never a massive fan.
Sure.
He like a lot like Dave's music, like his, when it kind of gets you and catches your ear, like you get it and you're drugged down into it in a way that lasts. But yeah, for some reason I definitely fell off, I think around the same time that a lot of people fell off when he went through this name change. And it's interesting because now, knowing the backstory pretty intimately behind what was going on during that time, and just talking about the implications of that name change and how that actually affected him and his living and his family. But yeah, so I came at it more from I started making films. I started making concert films, and so my visual language is very much kind of forged through music and capturing music in this language of music. And faith has always been kind of, one of the most interesting things to me in terms of the creative struggle, like this thing that can either be the most dangerous thing in the world, the most beautiful thing in the world, the saving grace, it's so pliable, and it is so fucking uniquely human. And, that, so yeah, and I think all my work, is interested in that or touches on that a little bit, but never as much as when I was editing my last film, and I heard this Dave on Pete Holmes's podcast.
Yeah, that was a great episode. Yeah,
and just the candor and the way he took Pete through his journey, just kind of like lit a fire for me in a way where it's just like, oh, what an amazing opportunity to have like this gifted like communicator able to so clearly and artistically and use his music to create like a foundation for people to feel and engage with these questions. Like it felt so perfect, and kind of, like the best way that I could tell that story or marry these two kind of ideas. And then, so actually right after that, I went home and printed out every single lyric that he had ever written up to that point, and kind of like put together a little ghetto book, and, was able to kind of see the enormity of this body of work and kind of cross-reference it and, see it from this omnipotent perspective where you kind of see that he's after the same thing the whole time. And, he's changing settings and he's changing conflicts and, but he stays doggedly after the same thing. And that was, to see all of that, like it really kind of became undeniable that this was a worthy endeavor.
Wait, so that brings me to my question then. Was this your idea or his idea? Sounds like it would be yours. Okay.
Yeah.
You're like, Dave, I made this book and I want to make a movie about you.
Yeah, I learned later actually that there was a handful of suitors before me that had tried to make films about Dave, and so they were, like, the nice thing was I had just started talking to this producer named Allison Massey, really, really talented producer, and I had put together kind of like a slate of the projects that I had coming up, and I was really interested working with her on, and just kind of gave it to her without any knowledge of her connection to Dave. And she came back and she's like, I grew up with Dave. Like I went to these shows growing up, like, this, let's do this.
Yeah.
And so she, through a mutual friend, got back in touch with Dave, and, we were kind of off to the races way faster than I expected.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I kind of just flew up there. And, it just kind of all happened so fast that I didn't really get to process it until I was like in my rental car on my way from SeaTac to Dave's house. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit. Like,
right. Did you get a little, starstruck or nervous, about
Yeah, I mean, it's just
meeting?
like when the first time, it's such a heavy thing. The director subject relationship is such a heavy thing, and it's like it's really important to start on the right foot. And I didn't feel like I had put enough kind of energy into that side of it, and just really thinking about the big picture of stuff, because things started happening so fast. And so, and luckily we, you know, like it was great, and we have become really, really good friends since. But yeah, I do remember there being a moment where I was like, oh fuck, I have not thought this all the way through. Like when I was like 10 minutes away from his house, because everything had just been so crazy. And then I just pull up at his house and it's like, all right, we're going to spend the next couple of years together, and you're going to open, you know, the door to the deepest, darkest for me.
Right.
Right.
And so do you, I'm just trying to think, like, do you come up and say, hey Dave, I'm doing this documentary. This is all, I'm going to guide it. And Dave just goes like, okay, cool. Yeah. Whatever you need, let me know. Or is it Dave being like, okay, well, we should have it. Like, does he guide it at all? Like who is guiding it mostly?
Yeah, me. Okay. And that's like really important in terms of, you know, like because it's you know, like filmmaking is just, the way I think about it is just like, it's just a series of decisions, and there's so many different kind of roads you can go down to explore a person or to explore a situation, or there's so many different ways to capture even one moment. So it becomes such like a kind of a singular perspective that really has to stay pretty pure. And, you know, I was really clear with Dave up front, like, you know, if you're ever uncomfortable with anything, or, you know, like, the first instinct is to always talk. Like, let's always talk about what's working, what's not. But, you know, in terms of kind of the creative lead on it, Dave, you know, was happily kind of hands off on that. Because, you know, realistically, we just did an interview earlier today where he kind of reminded me that he, like 2016 is what he will say is the worst year of his life. You know, as you guys got on your podcast.
We did.
So, you know, it's like he's got only a certain amount of bandwidth, and he's, you know, which was great for me as a filmmaker in some ways, because it was like this amazing raw kind of like, he had enough going on where he was not really concerned about me.
Does it feel exploitive at all? Because I feel like it's like, it's kind of like a news reporter who's like, a tragedy happened, and like, oh, I get to go like get a cool report on a tragedy. Like, because is there any sort of internal like, oh, it's kind of weird that the timing worked out so that he had this horrible year? Or do you know what I'm trying to say?
No, I absolutely get it, and that's something that like I've really kind of dealt with, and come to a pretty good spot with, just in terms of like my filmmaking. Like, my first film was a film called La Source, and it was about this Haitian man who was a janitor at Princeton University, and like his dream and his goal was to bring clean water to his village in Haiti. And it happened right, we happened to start shooting right before the earthquake.
Oh man. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so it put us down in Port-au-Prince and Jacmel right after the earthquake. And there was, you know, it was just like, it was so hard because there was so many news crews that were just looking for, you know, dead bodies and blood. And, you know, like I mean, countless times I just have frames full of people giving me the middle finger. And it's like, I fucking get it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing with this film. Like, you don't, and there's no reason you should. Yeah. And, you know, like that film was really successful in terms of, you know, like we built 40 wells, you know, from fundraisers in the film and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's just, you know, like you have to have kind of that perspective and make up your mind about the ethics of it pretty early on. And Me and Dave like really came to a place where we trusted each other, and it's one of those things where it's like I'm not necessarily going to use everything, but one of the biggest things about being able to talk about faith in the way that he does, which is, you know, obviously such a divisive subject, is that he is so vulnerable in every other area of his life. So he is always a three-dimensional person, you know, so it's hard for people to be like, fuck you because of this, and this, you know, it's like, you know, he just got done, you know, talking about how schlubby he is, or he just got done talking about this or that. And to be able to kind of like show the complexity of Dave is incredibly important because the dude is so complex and he's always in tension in one thing or another, which keeps him really sharp, but it's really, really exhausting, I think, for him as well. So to capture that, I felt it was my duty, you know, to tell Dave's story well, was to give this three-dimensional version. And, you know, Dave was like, he knew what I was after right away, and we were pretty clear about like, I'm not making a tour film. I'm not making a fan film. You know, like most of the people that will see this film won't know who you are. Like this, and you know, like it's just, you know, the idea is that it tells this bigger story. It has this bigger conversation about all the things that you care about. And he was really into it. I remember the first time I was up there, he was kind of going through a bunch of like mini DV tapes, and his wife was down there with us. And he's like, "Oh, this is the year I got kicked out of Cornerstone for being drunk." Or the notorious Cornerstone year, or whatever he said. Right. And his wife is just like, "Dave, no." And he's like, "Babe, this is what we're doing. If I'm going to do this, like, I'm going to do it." And at that moment, it was just kind of like, okay, you know, like we're on the same page. He's willing to make, you know,
like he's not trying to protect himself from anything.
It's like warts and all. But, you know, with that said, he's also very protective of just kind of like the messaging, and he doesn't want it to, you know, it's a hard thing because no one's controlled his messaging outside of himself and Bob for the last 20 years. Yeah. And so, you know,
hashtag Bob.
Yeah, there you go. And I am now, which I think is hard for them in some ways. But it's also kind of brings an excitement and a different perspective.
Totally.
So, I mean, obviously you had to have spent hundreds of hours with him, I mean, on the road or otherwise. Were there moments where, I mean, that's a very intimate place, and in a car, you can't really get away from each other. Totally. So were there moments, you know, of tension or disagreement? And I'm not looking for some crazy argument story. I just mean that's close quarters to be with anyone for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I kind of made the decision early on that I wasn't going to do like traditional sit down talking head interviews, which meant that I had to kind of get inside his head in a different way. And part of that was going and filming him on different podcasts, you know, that I was able to kind of join him on. And the majority part of that became something production-wise that's kind of a nightmare, and you do everything you can to stay away from. But I decided to shoot all the interviews in the car, and not really do interviews, just have conversations. So I spent a lot of time with my DP kind of figuring out this rig that would both, look beautiful and cinematic, and capture what we need. And then Allison had a good friend who was like, the sound guy for Transformers and all this stuff. And so I rented the van that I was going to rent for the tour and brought it up to his house in Silver Lake in LA. And he helped me kind of wire it up and, just got a setup that I could just kind of turn on. And the idea was, on all these long drives between cities, to just start a conversation and have it be more like entering into his head rather than him answering questions. Because the idea is, he's on the road half of the year. And so that's kind of his homeostasis. Like he's more comfortable in the front seat of that van than anywhere else in the world. That's where he does most of his thinking. Like it's a very solitary place most of the time. So the idea was to get that tone and to get that vibe in these conversations. And it's funny because I'm thinking about it now, and one of the last ones we did, getting to the conflict thing, one of the last ones we did coming back from Richard Swift's studio in Oregon, where he just recorded Care. I was, I'm kind of trying to button down and wrap up production, obviously, and I know there's pretty specific things that I need, and I'm kind of wanting to get to. And so I was a little bit more directed in our conversations that I had been in the past.
Yeah.
And that, he could feel that. And, it made him uncomfortable. And, we've become good enough friends at this point for him to just be like, this doesn't fucking feel right.
Right.
And then it becomes a thing where it's like, we, there's enough trust for it not to have to feel right every second. But it was really, I'm enjoying. Dave is he's an incredible artist and a very smart guy. And so as much of a pain in the ass it is sometimes, when things are kind of, the messaging feels off or whatever, he's always sharpening me and the film. And it's never he's never kind of trying to take the wheel, but he'll, you build a fidelity in your life over your entire life, especially being a public figure. And it's important for the person to get that right. And I really respect that.
Yeah.
Nice.
So will he have a fairly strong say in the final edit then, as far as what gets in and out?
We'll see how that goes. I mean, the nice thing about the final edit is that, I have the space to build in the nuance that I plan on building in, where, today we were talking with a radio station in Seattle, and there was a performance that I had kind of prepared for them, that, kind of gave a behind the scenes look at their performance, of Dave's performance with them. And he was like, dude, I'm so fucking sorry, but I hate that performance. That was a low point. I didn't go down that path in terms of the instrumentation of it. It makes me want to, it makes me cringe. And, it was okay, because it's the idea is that's probably going to be in the film, but it will be in the film with context of part of a journey.
Right.
But to break that out by itself, I get that, and I respect that, is a hard thing to just exist on its own without context.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, interestingly enough, that's exactly why the first podcast he did with us he asked to take it down because it was
interesting.
like it was. I thought you may have known that, but he. And it's funny you mentioned the car thing because the first podcast he recorded with us was he went in his car.
That's right.
And
I
was
listened
driving
to
around.
that one. Yeah. You sent that to me.
Yeah, and he was in a different mental space.
Right.
But then it also makes sense. He's like, I just don't want that existing. Like that was a true thing, but in context, it doesn't feel good to have it just be there for the rest of my life, which totally makes sense. It sounds like the exact same thing.
Yeah. And it's gonna be much different in terms of like the film is gonna be what it's supposed to be. And Dave knows that. So I'm interested to see how we're gonna continue to interact. I certainly want to keep my respect for him and our friendship at the forefront, but making a true film, and Dave will agree with this, making a true film is more important than that.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Oh, sorry, Josh, but I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now. As of today, Tuesday, there are 8 days to go, and it looks like you're just under $8,000 left. Basically, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about those numbers as of 8 days away?
We at 8,000? I think we have like 13,000 left.
Am I doing my math wrong? No, I'm an idiot. No, you're right. I went the other way from 10.
I wish that we...
Yeah, you just got 5,000 in the last 20 minutes. So no,
that's
you're at
cool.
62.
Thanks for doing that. Like that's a huge investment
that was me.
in the film.
Yeah, that was Andy. He just dropped it.
Our new associate producer. That's so great.
Okay, yeah. So you're at 62,000 out of 75. So how do you feel about that right now?
It's always nerve-wracking up until the end. Yeah, I'm a naturally anxious person, so it's
You're
just
in good
like
company here.
Yeah, it's my worst nightmare to have this kind of like elephant sitting on my shoulders for a whole fucking month.
Right.
And thank God for Allison, the film's producer, who is doing all of the, like social media posting and kind of like the pleading and the stuff,
the dirty stuff.
Yeah, if it was up to me, we would have made $10,000 at this point. It makes me really uncomfortable to even think about it. So I'm just so thankful because she's doing an amazing job. Interacting with the community and just like finding new perks, and I've been kind of trying to work on the press stuff, and it's just been like a ton of deadlines. But I think like we have a pretty good momentum here. It's really like one of the things that we made a priority from the beginning was making enough low-level perks to really kind of like activate a community and make sure that like anyone who was interested in being a part of this and would be interested in getting the updates and kind of first info on screenings and stuff like that would be able to get involved. And so like our biggest pledge at this point I think is $1,500, which is crazy when you think about, $62,000 and, almost 1,200 backers. Right. So that's incredibly encouraging. I think Allison was saying that we should be right around 1,500 to meet our goal. And we still have some pretty cool perks to roll out, and I'm going to try to talk Dave into doing an AMA while we're in Calvin or Grand Rapids. So it's a sprint, but I think if we continue down the road we're on and people keep sharing, that's the hard thing is it's all about it echoing out. You guys have done it before, so it's like it's all about it echoing outside of your your direct sphere of influence. And that direct sphere of influence in this case is Bazandom. Everyone that knows and loves Dave, like, it has to get out to that next level of interest for it to actually be successful. And so, you know, we're doing the Vinyl Me Please thing is great. Like, you know, Tyler was so rad. We had a really good conversation before we kind of figured out how to work together, just about, you know, a very similar conversation to this, just about who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. And that's, you know, he came up with the idea of putting up Care Vinyl and, you know, talking to you guys and talking to KXP this morning, and we're releasing a Noisy thing with an exclusive clip with Noisy on Thursday morning that kind of profiles the recording of Permanent Record off of the new new record. So yeah, it's just like, it's such a hard thing because you can always be doing more, and that's a terrible thing for me.
Sure. Yeah. Well, gosh, I have a lot of thoughts. I could, just because I'm so fresh off of my Kickstarter, and we only did a 2-week one, and we were only asking for $5,000, but that
How'd
2
it go?
weeks well, it was successful. It raised almost 6,000, and
oh, great.
But I mean, it was that thing where for 10 days of those 2 weeks, it wasn't even halfway. You know, and I just thought, I'm gonna be the laughing stock of the internet, which of course wouldn't have been true, but it baffled me when people who I had no idea who they were giving 150, and Andy, you shared like and this was exactly true. The last 3 days, there's an amazing surge all of a sudden, where people who were maybe sleeping on it finally step up and
the lazy people catch on, like, oh shit, I got to make this happen.
So anyway, all that to say, I certainly hope that happens. I think when you're this far, it's pretty much going to go through. So
from this end, I'm not worried for you, but that doesn't really help you, I would assume.
I mean, the best case scenario, we're able to kind of exceed the goal, and there's plenty of worthy places for that money to go to, because the film's budget is much more than $75,000.
Yeah, you could pay off your credit card debt, hopefully.
That would be nice. Like, my wife and child would like that.
Yeah, it's like, I know you guys all love Dave, but if you want to help this man's credit card debt, there's another reason to jump in.
I'm very much looking forward to the day that it ends.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll kind of be out of the woods on this, just defining the film in ways that I'm not comfortable with defining it yet.
Sure.
Whether it's the presentation at the Festival of Faith and Music, or videos on Kickstarter, like, I want to sit on this egg until it's ready to hatch.
Yeah.
Right. And so this was my second question from way earlier that we never got to. But the 75,000, I mean, the film is pretty much completely shot already, right? All the filming has been done. So what does that budget go towards? I mean, I recognize part of it is the credit cards.
Why do you even need this much money? You could just use iMovie. Just get your iPhone out. Like, why do you need? This is ridiculous.
Honestly, it's like, it's a little more than it's about a third of the operating budget of the film. It's post-production is the step that is just undeniably expensive, where I can make production happen, like, I ended up having to shoot most of the film by myself with, like, a lot of nights it was 3 cameras. Like, I would mount a camera that I would control with my phone, I would be wearing a camera, and I would have a camera in the back on sticks, and then I would also be getting the feed from the soundboard and having to monitor that. And, you know, like, it's just this ridiculous, like, one-man show bullshit.
Dave's got like a GoPro on his guitar neck.
Seriously. Yeah, it's, you know, so it really... What was I saying there? Why was I telling about?
Oh, just
that?
all the filming
hardship.
and the post production cost.
Oh yeah,
you're trying to prove that you actually need $75,000.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I can extend so much in production, but post production, like, I can do production by myself if I have to. Yeah. Post production, you know, it's just like the sound on this film is maybe more of a driving quality than the picture. So I've gotten most of the stems from Dave's recordings throughout the years, and so, like, I'm able to use those for transitions, and just cool. Like, we're doing some weird shit, and it's gonna take some talented people to, you know, that's the other thing is when you're shooting by yourself, you're also not able to, you know, be technically perfect on a lot of things. So old fix it in post adage catches up with you, and, you know, color correction takes twice or three times as long, and, you know, there's things that just have to happen to bring it up to the professional level that I am not able to do by myself. So yeah, it's like, you know, you get bills that are $30,000 or whatever at a time.
Goodness sakes.
And yeah, and that's like, you know, that's getting these insane deals. Like, my last two films I was able to mix at Skywalker here in Marin County, George Lucas's sound post-production studio, and like they did almost everything for free, and it was still like we're still trying to find investors at the last second to cover it, because it's just an insane cost. Yeah, so. Right. That this money, realistically, though, is going. It's not even going towards. It's really going towards putting me in the hole, and letting me kind of, in an unadulterated way, find this film out of the 40 terabytes of footage, and then get to a cut that. You know, is premierable, and then, so yeah, it's all post.
Yeah. So I think what we've decided now is the tagline for the Kickstarter is now, hey, if you want to help Brandon with his credit card debt and put him in a hole, this is what you got to do.
You need to start like a GoFundMe of yourself with like a homeless sign and
a GoFundMe for the Kickstarter.
Your wife and child have like dirt all over their face because they haven't been in a house for. I'm just kidding. That's terrible.
No, it's an insane business to try to be in. Like, my last film, In Pursuit of Silence, went and, you know, like, we did everything that you're supposed to do. A big premiere at South by Southwest, like, a art house distributor bought the film, all this stuff, and it's just like, the world of independent cinema is just crumbling underneath itself in such a way that, you know, like, the woman that we signed under, who was a total badass, like, is no longer at this company.
Oh, man.
You know, we did a 15 city theatrical release in the UK, and we didn't make $1, even though we sold a bunch of tickets. Like, the whole strategy there was to sell it to foreign TV markets and European TV markets. And it's just like and we're supposed to be doing a 15 city theatrical in the States. And again, that's really just, I mean, it's a very similar thing as going on in the music industry that Dave talks a lot about, is people used to be touring, to promote the record, and now like the record promotes the touring,
Right.
and that's the only way to make money. And so, yeah, it's a weird world.
Yeah.
Yes. I am baffled by how many little film festivals have cropped up over the past decade or so. And I mean, frankly, having never stepped into that world before and being pretty ignorant about it, I mean, I'm trying to keep my expectations really low for my short film, mainly because I know there's 10,000 other white guys doing the exact same thing who think their movie's gonna go do all the things. And
But you're a white guy doing movies and podcasts, so there's not very many.
So
of those.
I'm free and clear, gonna win all the awards.
Sick.
But it's just
Sess
it's
with
sort of-
dollar signs, not S's.
Yeah.
Yes.
It feels to me, this is a corny analogy, but sort of like in the days of MySpace when everybody had a damn band on MySpace that is
Right.
just kind of like, well, there's so much noise and distraction that how can anybody ever get noticed? And independent
Yeah.
film feels very much that way.
Well, totally, because the barrier of entry is minuscule now. It's like you can buy a 4K mirrorless camera for like $1,000 now, or even less in some cases. And, to make beautiful images, and to record decent sound in terms of the technology, like when I was in film school, it's a good beginning to just fucking stop right now. But like we shot film and we edited on like big Steinbeck editing machines, and like the digital revolution was just kind of happening, and it was so exciting. And the DVX 100 and 24p technology to look like film. And now it's just like, the iPhone can record unbelievable images. Like the thing that 75% of Americans have in their pockets has more imaging power than anything that I ever had up until now.
Plus, you can put like puppy ears and big eyes on your face with Snapchat. Like, it's amazing.
Game over.
Yeah,
Right.
can't compete with that.
So yeah, it's a hard thing. And like film festivals, that's another hard thing too, because that's just been like you said, they've been cropping up all over the place. And there's a business to it. And I actually just wrote this article for this magazine called Movie Maker about kind of how to delineate between how to tell if festivals are worth it or not.
Yeah.
Because, like they're a big investment, especially, if you get in to travel to a festival, like you really have to think about how that's an investment. And feel free to, talk to me later about if you need any tips on who's doing good things or, what's worth it and what's not.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
I certainly will.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If I may ask, so I've come to understand that producers tend to have pretty different roles depending on the size and budget of the film.
Yeah.
And so what is Allison's role? I mean, you mentioned some of it, but from the start, what is your relationship with her and what does she keep moving on the film?
Yeah, and we share that producer role.
Okay, gotcha.
So I kind of act more as the boots on the ground, like nuts and bolts, like line producer, where it's scheduling, it's like making the physical things happen in the shoot. And Allison is really good at kind of like broader strokes, like where is the film headed? How are we going to keep this alive in terms of the financials? who are we going to start conversations with about distribution. She's a development executive at this really great company called Exhibit A, which is run by Seth Gordon, who is a big filmmaker now that makes like crazy big action films like Baywatch and shit, but started making this movie called King of Kong, which is
That's a great
documentary about Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
And has been, just like really, they have supported documentaries to the tune of a couple Oscars, actually. And, like that company has done really well in the documentary space. So Allison, and she's worked on some great documentaries. So yeah, she, like unbelievable in this Kickstarter, and kind of like we're really coming together in an exciting way now that post-production is happening.
Yeah, totally.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself down the road staying within documentaries, or would you ever tell a fictional story, do you think? I've been kind of thinking about the next thing that I did was planned on being a fiction film, but a couple other docs have kind of cropped up, and I've done a handful of short narrative films that have done the festival circuit, but have not yet done a feature. And I just like, I don't really, the line between those two distinctions, I think, isn't as thick as we make it out to be. I'd like to kind of Werner Herzog it and swing back and forth between the two freely, because I think one informs the other pretty heavily. And, like the lessons that I'm able to learn as a documentary filmmaker about the human condition and what your face looks like when you hear this news, or, like the reality informs the fiction in a way that's, I think, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So perhaps in closing, what are some of your standby films, whether fictional or documentary? You can name some of both. Yeah.
Magnolia is my favorite movie of all time, I would say. It's just a film that kind of got me at the right time, and there was enough going on that has just kind of like, blossomed as I've become a more mature filmmaker, and it's continued to speak to me. And Paul Thomas Anderson, just as a filmmaker, has been a huge part of, just the way that I view films, I think. Yeah. Let's see. I like Jarhead quite a bit. The film Jarhead.
Yeah,
I've never seen that. Yeah.
That's
really?
Jake Gyllenhaal, right?
I know it, and I've become a recent sort of fan of his. So I got to go to the back catalog, I guess.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, no, that I don't know why that actually just popped up in my head. Let's see. I like Alfonso Cuarón a lot. I like Children of Men is definitely on my top 5 of all time.
Nice.
Remarkable one takes on that movie, and I don't know how much they cheated it or how much of it was real, but it's damn effective.
It's so much. It's just like, it's really, really exciting filmmaking. That's also, like asking big questions as well. Mm-hmm. In terms of documentaries, like I love the film Bombay Beach, which is this really kind of like lyrical film about the Salton Sea and the people that live within it. It's this kind of like dried up, man-made body of water in Southern California out in the desert that has just kind of become this haven for all sorts of colorful people. But this woman, Alma Harrell, made this really beautiful, beautiful film about just kind of profiling 5 or 6 inhabitants of that space. I'm trying to think of other documentaries that have really... I've often talked about the film that I'm making as kind of a cross between like Nick Cave's 20,000 Days on Earth and a film called Cutie and the Boxer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but
not the second one. I'm not familiar, huh?
Yeah, it was nominated like 3 years ago for Best Doc, and it's about I believe a Chinese artist and his wife living in New York. And it's just like an insane look at process. And, like I really treated this film more as a film about a painter than a film about a musician in terms of, or I am currently treating it like that. Because I'm so much more interested in what the art says about the man than the art itself.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent way to view it.
That sounds like a really good tweet. You'd get a lot of retweets on that.
I'm still trying to figure that whole this whole promotion world. It's been this has been a different process for me. Like this film has been kind of different, where in the past the films have been would just disappear and then 3 years later pop back up on the festival circuit with a film and do some press. But this one, it's like there's so many niche audiences and people that have so much devotion to Dave's work and have been committed to Dave and kind of just like I feel so lucky to be telling the story and like actually wanting to connect with the community in an authentic way before it's just like, oh, here's a fucking movie about the guy that you know more about than anyone else.
Right.
So, and it's been great because being able to interact with those people in terms of getting archival footage and, just people that have talked to him like you guys. And he's touched a lot of people along the way in the corniest of sayings, but yeah.
So
awesome.
It sounds like you have enough. I know we're wrapping up, but this could easily be a 2-hour film. Are you going to try to keep it at 90 or like 100 minutes, or do you even know yet?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Like everything is like, all my body is yearning to just like get in the hole with this film and
see what you have.
Yeah. And it's, I know what I have, and I could send you guys a picture of what my editing space looks like right now. Like it's there's note cards, color-coded note cards all over the walls that
you're like the crazy cop who's trying to solve the murder investigation after he's been fired.
Exactly. Some true detective shit going on here.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like I know, but I haven't found I need the time to let them commingle and kind of like create something. And so, it's so hard to have to define it and talk about it and stuff before you get that. But so few people get to hold out as long as I have. So I feel really lucky to have done that. But I'm also just so excited to not talk to anyone for 3 or 4 months and come back with this thing and just, That's the best.
Just emerge from the cave with a thing. And don't let those industry sons of bitches tell you to keep it programmable. You just say, no, this is going to be as long as a Joe Rogan podcast. It's going to be 4 hours.
That's a great example. He puts out like 5 3.5-hour podcasts every week. Like who is going to listen to that?
And like a lot of people listen to that.
Yeah.
You know what? I've actually become, I learned about it through my last film, but people have told me that Joe Rogan is a big proponent. I've become a big fan of float therapy.
Yes. I really want to do that.
And that's like, you know, we talked a little bit about anxiety earlier. Like, it sounds like you guys are on the level in terms of that. Like that.
Heard of it?
Takes, I read about it somewhere. Uh-huh. It takes that level of deprivation, like, to really like reset for me, and it's become a pretty cool thing that I've been able to lean on.
How often do you do it?
You know, my wife and daughter and I lived in LA for a long, like 12 years, and we just recently moved up to the Bay Area in California, San Francisco area, and so I haven't been able to do it as much since we moved up here because we lived very close to the largest float center on the planet.
I think I've heard Joe talk about it. It's like there's like a mecca there for flotation stuff.
Yeah, and like, you know, Caltech is right there, and they're doing all this like this brain, you know, scanning. It's closed down every couple of weeks because Caltech is in there, and it's intense, but I really, really recommend it.
Nice.
Man, I want to try it as well. It terrifies me a little bit, like just only because I'm scared of water. But the rest of it sounds very enjoyable. Like, what if I flip over face down and get stuck?
I've fallen asleep before.
Oh wow!
And and woken up, and like that was one of the most transcendent experiences actually. Wow. Yeah, and it's salinated to a point where you literally can't submerge.
Right. It's gotcha.
Yeah.
My biggest fear would be peeing in there. Like, what if I get to a point where I can't control that? I don't want to come out and be like, "Hey, guy, I'm sorry, but you're gonna need to drain that water."
No, they drain it. Like, that's standard practice.
Okay, good.
Like, who knows what goes on in those things?
Totally.
Like, they drain it every single time, and yeah, it's a pretty legit thing. It seems super weird and not like something that I thought that I would be talking about on a podcast 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm a believer.
Wait, here's the thing maybe the thing I don't know about float tanks. I mean, I understand how it works, but how in the world do they get you out of it without it being just like an incredibly jarring experience? Like,
so you there's no like them in it at all. Like, you go into a room.
That sounds so deep, but yeah, I don't understand what you mean. There's no them.
Yeah, and then you get into it, and then you like slowly the lights dim, and there's like fucking whale music or something playing inside. And it all gets quieter until everything is off. And then...
So it's just a really slow fade in and then out. Same.
Slow fade out, yeah. But, I mean, what happens is you become just your mind, because you have no... The air is the same temperature as the water.
Right.
So there's no delineation between air and water. And
so cool.
You're not having to flex any of your muscles to balance. So it's just like slowly you feel your legs and your torso and your arms just kind of like disappear and become not an issue.
I've got all these issues attached to my body. I just want to get rid of them.
I've talked about it like I'm like a really like fucking crazy on or off person. Like, I'll either be like like doing a juice fast for like 15 days and nothing else, or like drinking and smoking every night and just like fucking going ape shit. And my wife always makes fun of me about it, but like it kind of reminds me of doing like a juice fast where your body, like after a couple of days, your body's like, oh shit, I don't have to like digest this Philly cheesesteak. Like I can use all this energy to like fix that thing on your hand, or like, you know, just go down to your feet and see what the fuck's up down there, or, you know, like whatever it is. And that's kind of mentally what flotation has done for me.
That sounds great.
Andy, you talking about getting out of it being a jarring experience. I just pictured like the side opening up and it dumps out.
It's like, oh,
you and the water all over.
Ejects you into a room.
Just like being born again, and you're crying.
You fall into a water slide and you're into a park with a million other people. Like, this.
That's good.
So ridiculous.
It's good.
Well,
I'm glad that's not what
Life.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm going to say to our listeners, this goes up April 3rd. So as of this day, you will have basically 3 days left to give to the Kickstarter. And you better do it, Ink and Echo people.
Get Brandon in the hole. That's what get in the hole, Brandon. That's what we want.
Please.
But
yeah, I can't wait to share this thing. Like it's been such a I mean, my whole life has been this thing in a way that is, you know, my reading list and my I can't express how excited I am for this to actually permeate in a way that has all the nuance in it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah,
Is there a better way to point people to the Kickstarter other than just saying, go to Kickstarter and search for David Bazan? Is there like a shorter way to do it?
No, I mean, you know, like there are Facebook / Bazan Film.
Yeah, you have your own handle for just the film, right? For all the places.
Yeah, it's littered with it, and you know, Twitter is @BazanFilm, Instagram is @BazanFilm. But yeah, you know, on Kickstarter, you know, instead of just listing off random letters and numbers, just you know, go and search Strange Negotiations.
Yeah,
David Bazan.
We can put a link in the show notes too.
We absolutely will do that.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Well, Brandon, this was a lot of fun, man. Very insightful.
Yeah.
And so thank you for doing this, and best
good
of luck.
freaking luck. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you. And hopefully, so you guys aren't in the same place, are you?
No, I'm in Denver.
And I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay. Well, it will be really fun to do. We will definitely, regardless of where the film goes and how it's seen, I can say with quite a bit of certainty that we will be doing a screening tour with Dave, and trying to connect with, you know, people like you guys in each of those markets to make it super cool, and, you know, like that town.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That sounds awesome.
That'd be amazing. Yeah.
Totally.
Record a live show or something.
Oh, that'd be so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Dang.
Yeah,
Cool.
totally. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on the film and kind of where we're at, and I appreciate the support.
Yeah. We
Absolutely.
appreciate you making the film. It's going to be good.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Take care.
Cool, guys. Have a good night.
Well, doggone it. That was a darn good talk. I don't know.
Doggone good talk. Yep.
I want to see this man's movies.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Well, I don't want him to have to be anxious about a Kickstarter, because I know how that feels. And you know what? Creative people don't need that pressure. We don't need it.
They don't. There's plenty between our ears already causing us strain. But truly, if you listeners, I mean, we've pitched it enough. Like, please go give at least a little bit to this money and help it get all the way there, whether you like Bazan or not, because I'll bet this will be of interest to see, even if you have no idea who he is.
I was pretty, when he was talking about how he kind of fell off the Bazan train after Pedro, I was never super into Pedro, but I really liked the Control album. And I was kind of that
You're one of
way.
those guys.
but I've always like followed him on Twitter and stuff, and I've always found his ideas to be, what are you doing? Are you being condescending over there?
Only a little.
I just mean I've always liked his thoughts more than his music, but they're both very good. So
yes,
take that for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just making fun of you because so many people are like, yeah, I really liked Control. Didn't really listen to his other stuff.
I know, but that's literally what I did. So shut up.
Yeah,
dude.
That's fine. Or there's all the Christians who stopped after Pedro because they're like, oh, curse your branches. That's the one where he gave up his faith, isn't it?
You can't say
dude,
curse.
You could learn some shit on that album. You can expand your damn mind, you dumb, small thinking,
you dumb
person.
Say it. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I really ran out of vocabulary right there.
Okay. I thought there were like 3 words, and you were like, "Nope, not that one. Nope, not that one."
No.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll listen to the other stuff. I like Dave.
I almost, when we had him on, threw you under the bus and was like, yeah, Andy doesn't give a shit about your music. Which wouldn't have been entirely true, but maybe would have led to a good laugh. But,
you've thrown me under the bus a lot more than I've thrown you under the bus in this podcast.
That's true.
I need to step up my bus throwing under you.
Search back through our years of friendship for some fodder.
I've got a CD of it sitting in my house.
Yeah, that'd be fine. As if you need my permission, you just throw it in. Sure, yeah, bring it. I need to be humbled in my life.
You need to get some chinchilla hardware. No one knows what we're talking about. We're talking about Josh's very first audio recordings of music, or maybe not very first, but
just about, yeah. I mean, that's a phonetically satisfying name, but that's about all it is.
Hardware. Cellar door. The most pleasing phrases in the English language. All right. Great.
Well, thanks, everybody.
Yep. We are a podcast. We have a website. It's inkandecho.com. You can contact us there. You can give us money there if you want. Patreon is a thing that we do, and it helps us do this thing that we're doing now and talk to nice people like Brandon. So consider it. Those things.
Take it into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Mull it over in your brain pan. And then return to us with your dollars outheld. All right. This has been Ink and Echo 35. Ladies. I am thinking it's a sign that the freckles in our eyes are mirror images, and when we kiss they're perfectly aligned. I have to speculate that the swirling M&Ms in this commercial are...
This was a boring stinger.
I think some will enjoy my Postal Service lyrics.
Okay.